You're living a life you never chose. You inherited it from your parents, who inherited it from theirs, from your culture, from the voices that said, this is what success looks like. This is what happiness means. This is who you should become. And you've been so busy climbing the ladder they build that you never asked if it's leaning against the right wall. The man in this story climbed for 15 years, made it to the top, looked around, and realized he'd climbed the wrong mountain entirely. The view from the summit? It was someone else's dream. And the cost of that realization almost destroyed him. But it also set him free. Now, I need you to understand why this video matters. This will show you how to recognize when you're chasing someone else's dream and how to find your own. Most people don't realize they're living borrowed lives until it's too late. They confuse cultural conditioning with authentic desire, familial expectations with personal calling. This story will give you the clarity to distinguish between what you actually want and what you've been programmed to want. You'll learn that being different isn't rebellion, it's survival. And conformity isn't safety, it's slow death. So let me tell you about James. He's 37 years old, partner at a prestigious law firm, six-figure salary that most people only dream about. Beautiful apartment in the city with floor-to-ceiling windows, respected by his colleagues, admired by his peers, everything his parents dreamed for him. Everything society says means you've made it. By every external metric, James won. But every Sunday night, he'd sit on his couch with this dread in his chest. Not anxiety about Monday morning meetings, not stress about cases. Dread about his life, about having to spend another week being someone he wasn't. James became a lawyer because his father was a lawyer. That's how it started. Not because James woke up one day and thought, you know what would be amazing? Spending my life reading contracts and arguing in depositions. No, he became a lawyer because at 17, when he was trying to figure out what to do with his life, he mentioned maybe studying art, maybe going to art school. And his father, this man James loved and respected, looked at him across the dinner table and said, artists starve, lawyers build legacies. And James heard the unspoken message underneath those words. If you become an artist, I'll be disappointed. If you become a lawyer, I'll be proud. So what does a 17-year-old kid do when faced with that choice? He chooses pride over authenticity, approval over desire. He chooses to bury the part of him that wanted to paint, the part that spent childhood afternoons completely lost in sketchbooks, the part that saw the world in colors and compositions, instead of arguments and logic. He buried it, told himself he was being practical, adult, smart, making the responsible choice. And for 15 years, that buried part stayed silent, until it didn't. The turning point came during a deposition. James was questioning a witness in a medical malpractice case. Standard work, nothing unusual. He'd done 1,000 depositions just like this one. But mid-question, he looked around the conference room. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, beige walls that seemed designed to drain the life out of anyone who looked at them too long, exhausted lawyers sitting around the table arguing over documents that nobody actually cared about. Everyone just trying to win for the sake of winning. And James had this thought. Just this clear, devastating thought. I'm going to do this for the next 30 years and then die. Not dramatic, not emotional, just factual. And something inside him broke. He excused himself, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, looked at himself in the mirror, and he didn't recognize the person staring back. Where had James gone? The James who painted, who created things, who felt alive. He'd been replaced by this hollow professional in an expensive suit who was very, very good at a job he'd never actually wanted. He splashed water on his face, straightened his tie, went back to the deposition, finished the day, but he couldn't unknow what he'd realized. That night, James did something radical, something dangerous. He asked himself the question he'd been avoiding for 15 years. If I could design my life from scratch, with no one watching, no one judging, no one's approval mattering, what would I choose? And the answer came immediately. So clear, it hurt. I'd paint. I'd teach art to kids. I'd live in a smaller place and have less money and drive an older car and be completely content because I'd be doing what I was meant to do. The answer was so clear, it was devastating because it meant everything he'd built, everything he'd worked for, everything he'd sacrificed for was built on the wrong foundation. He'd spent 15 years constructing a life he didn't want. He spent the next 3 months in quiet crisis. Couldn't tell his family because they'd be horrified. They'd think he was having a breakdown. Couldn't tell his colleagues because in their world, leaving a partnership to become a teacher was insane. So he suffered alone, going through the motions at work, billing his hours, winning his cases, while his internal world completely collapsed. He would wake up at 3 a.m. with his heart racing, thinking, what have I done with my life? He'd sit in partner meetings listening to people talk about expansion plans and think, I don't care about any of this. He was a ghost, present physically, but gone everywhere else. Then Thanksgiving came. His family gathered at his parents' house like they did every year. And his father pulled him aside in the kitchen while everyone else was in the living room. Asked if James was okay. Said, you seem different, distant. And James looked at this man James loved and respected, and he heard himself say something he didn't plan. Dad, I need to tell you something. I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I never did. I became one for you, and I can't do it anymore. I'm dying doing this. Silence. Long, heavy silence. James's heart was pounding. He'd just said the thing he'd been too terrified to say for 15 years. And his father just stood there, looking at him. And then his father said something James never expected. He said, I know. James was stunned. You know? What do you mean you know? I've always known. I watched you light up when you talked about art, when you'd show me your drawings. And I watched that light die when you went to law school. I thought you were being responsible, making the smart choice. I didn't realize I was watching you bury yourself. I'm sorry I made you choose between my approval and your happiness. I thought I was protecting you, but I was killing you. James started crying, right there in his parents' kitchen, with the turkey in the oven and his family in the next room. Full, chest-heaving sobs, not just from relief, from grief. Grief for the 15 years he'd spent trying to earn approval he already had, for the life he could have been living, for the version of himself who wanted to paint and got convinced he wasn't allowed to, for all the art he never created because he was too busy arguing about liability clauses. But grief, when it's witnessed and held by someone who loves you, becomes transformation. His father put his hand on his shoulder and said, it's not too late. You're 37. You could have 40 more years of painting, 40 more years of teaching. Don't waste them being a lawyer I never asked you to be. I just wanted you to be happy. I thought law would make you happy. But if it doesn't, then what's the point? 3 months later, James quit. Gave his notice to the firm. His colleagues thought he was crazy. Some tried to talk him out of it, offered him sabbaticals, reduced hours, more money. But James had made the decision. He wasn't negotiating anymore. He took his savings and enrolled in a teaching certification program for art education, moved out of his expensive apartment into a smaller place, started painting again, set up an easel in his living room. And you know what he discovered? The fear of disappointing others was worse than actually disappointing them. The imagined judgment was louder than the real response, because most people, when he told them, said, good for you. I wish I was that brave. I wish I could do what you're doing.
2 years later, James teaches art at a public high school, makes a third of what he made as a lawyer, has paint permanently under his fingernails, wears jeans to work instead of suits, wakes up without dread. And when people ask if he regrets leaving law, he says, I regret every year I spent there, but I don't regret leaving. He tells his students something he wishes someone had told him when he was their age. He says, the world will give you 1,000 reasons to be like everyone else, to choose the safe path, the expected path, the path that makes sense to people who don't know you. And if you listen to all those voices, if you let them drown out your own voice, you'll wake up at 40 and realize you've been living someone else's dream. The bravest thing you can do is be yourself, even if it disappoints people, even if it looks weird, even if it makes no sense to anyone but you. James isn't famous, isn't wealthy by conventional standards, isn't impressive at dinner parties, but he's alive, actually alive, for the first time since he was 17. And every day he teaches kids to trust themselves, to listen to their own voice, he's apologizing to the 17-year-old James he abandoned, telling him, I came back. I'm sorry it took so long, but I came back. So what did James actually learn? What are the truths that let him break free from the wrong dream and dare to be different? First truth, borrowed dreams feel like success until you achieve them. You can't tell you're chasing the wrong dream while you're chasing it because the pursuit feels productive. You're working hard, making progress, earning approval, checking boxes. It feels like you're winning. But the moment you achieve it, the moment you reach the summit of that mountain, the emptiness hits. Because achievement without authentic desire is just expensive emptiness. It's a beautiful prison. The way to know if it's your dream, ask yourself this. Imagine you've achieved it and no one knows. No one will ever know. Does it still matter? If the answer is no, it's not your dream. It's a performance. You're chasing approval disguised as ambition. Real dreams survive the removal of the audience. They matter even if no one ever sees them. Second truth. Other people's expectations are not your responsibility. You think you owe your parents, your culture, your community the life they envision for you, but you don't. You owe them respect, gratitude, honesty, but not your entire existence, not your soul. Living someone else's dream to make them proud is the slowest form of self-betrayal. You're killing yourself to make other people comfortable. And the irony? Most people don't even want you to sacrifice yourself for them. James's father didn't want him to be miserable. He just didn't realize that's what was happening. Most people just want you happy. And the ones who need you to be unhappy to maintain their own worldview, those aren't your people. Third truth, being different isn't rebellion, it's survival. When you dare to be different, people will call it rebellion, selfishness, a phase, a crisis, but it's not. It's survival. The survival of your authentic self. Conformity feels safe, but it's death. Slow, quiet, socially acceptable death. You get to the end of your life and realize you never actually lived. You just performed. Being different, choosing the path that's true for you, even when it looks wrong to everyone else, that's how you stay alive. That's how you honor the one life you get. Fourth truth, it's never too late to start over. James was 37. You might be older or younger. Doesn't matter. Every moment you're alive is a moment you can choose differently. Stop using "I've already invested so much time" as a reason to keep investing time in the wrong direction. Sunk cost is not a life strategy. It's a trap. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. It's never too late to become who you were supposed to be before the world told you who you to be. So how do you actually do this? How do you stop chasing other people's dreams and find your own? First practice, the invisible audience test. For every major decision or goal you have, ask this question. If no one would ever know about this, no family, no friends, no social media, would I still want it? If the answer is no, it's not your dream. It's a performance. You're chasing approval disguised as ambition. Real dreams survive the removal of the audience. They matter even if no one ever sees them. Second practice, the 17-year-old interview. Close your eyes. Imagine the version of you before the world taught you what you should want. Before people told you to be realistic. Before you learned to shrink yourself to fit other people's expectations. Ask them, what did you love? What made you come alive? What did you dream about before people told you those dreams were impractical? Write down what they say. That's your compass. Not a perfect map, but a direction towards your authentic self. Third practice, the permission letter. This one's powerful. Write a letter to yourself giving yourself permission to disappoint people by being yourself. Say explicitly, I give myself permission to want things that don't make sense to others, to choose paths that look impractical, to be different even if it costs me approval. Then read it whenever the fear of judgment tries to stop you, because that fear will come. It always does. But you'll have your own permission slip. Fourth practice, the one different choice. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. You don't have to blow up your life. But make one choice this week that's true to you, even if it's different from what's expected. Wear something unconventional. Try a hobby people think is weird. Say no to something you should do. Practice being different in small doses. It builds the muscle for bigger choices, because being yourself is a muscle, and most of us have let it atrophy. James spent 15 years climbing the wrong mountain, and when he reached the top, he had the courage to climb back down and start over. Not because the first mountain was bad. Law isn't bad. Success isn't bad. But it wasn't his. It was someone else's definition of success that he'd internalized as his own. You might be on the wrong mountain right now, living someone else's dream, chasing approval disguised as ambition. And if you are, this is your moment to ask, is this actually mine? Not, is this impressive? Not, is this what I should want? Is this mine? You don't owe your life to anyone's expectations, not your parents, not your cultures, not society's. You owe yourself the chance to discover what you actually want underneath all the programming. And yeah, being different is scary. It disappoints people, it looks impractical, people will think you're making a mistake. But conformity is scarier. It kills you slowly while making you look successful. It gives you the appearance of a life while stealing your actual life. Here's your truth. Say it with me. I am not required to live someone else's dream to earn my place in the world. Say it again. My difference is not a flaw. It's my signature. One more time. I choose authenticity over approval. Every time. Because approval is temporary, but authenticity is permanent. Approval has to be earned over and over. Authenticity just is. If this gave you permission to be different, hit the like button. Not for me, for you. As a declaration, as a commitment to yourself that you're done performing. Drop a comment and tell me, what dream are you chasing that might not be yours? Make it real. Name it. And subscribe for more truth about living authentically in a world that rewards conformity. You're not weird, you're not selfish, you're not having a crisis, you're just awake. And awake people dare to be different. Stay that way.